Medicine and public health from Roman Britain through to 1350, through to the medieval period. Key words in this booklet then that we want you to be able to understand and define. The aediles, the Roman public health police, obviously a reflection on a strong central government that uses its taxes to provide public health and enforce rules, a strong government. An apothecary, a mixture between a modern chemist but overwhelmingly a superstitious provider of medicine. Barber surgeons, people who cut hair, people who had sharp implements, who also carried out surgery. They had to be strong and they had to be quick. They didn't need to be particularly bright. Obviously, they could only deal with rather superficial surgery. The Black Death, the great epidemic, the pandemic over more than one continent that swept through Europe in the 14th century. Bloodletting, a means of balancing the four humours. Remove blood from the body to bring the other humours into balance. The Catholic Church, the only real institution of any power to survive the collapse of the Roman Empire around AD 500. The four humours, Hippocrates' theory on how the human body should remain in good health, finding a balance between blood, phlegm, yellow bile and black bile. Galen, the man in the Roman period who took the ideas of Hippocrates, continuity, and added to them. It was his ideas that were supported by the Catholic Church, which survived the collapse of the Roman Empire. Galen is a good example of continuity between the Roman and medieval periods, along with the four humours. The role of government. The Romans had strong central government. The collapse of the Roman Empire in Britain around AD 500 left Britain without strong centralised government and the consequences that led on from that. Leprosy was the great terrifying illness of the medieval period. Medieval, the name given to that period that comes between the classical world of Greece and Rome and the start of the Renaissance around the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries. Miasma, one of the ways in which medieval people believed that illness was spread. Bad air. Public health. Work done by the government to provide for the health and the well-being of the people. Very important in ancient Rome, but nowhere near as comprehensive in the medieval period. I think the nearest thing we get to public health is what's available for the monks in the monasteries in the medieval period and the plague orders of the Black Death, quarantining houses. Finally, physician, a qualified doctor, would have gone to one of the universities that would have been teaching the works of Galen and Hippocrates, no doubt a university supported by the church, only really available to the wealthy people in medieval society. Lesson 1 then, straightforward. The Roman era of medicine is one of progression. The Romans had Galen. He helped medicine progress by developing new ideas about anatomy of the body. Remember, he was a gladiatorial surgeon. He claims to have carried out autopsies on humans. No doubt he saw human bodies but probably never carried out a full dissection, but did on animals as well. Galen believed in the theory of the four humours and he kept alive Hippocrates' ideas. Some people still believed in superstitious reasons for the cause of illness, and that will go on all the way through, even to the present day. So what was the scale of Roman public health? Watch the clip, you'll find it available on the shared area, and complete that particular section there. Then, using pages 66 to 71 of the textbook, make notes around the mind map opposite to explain the impact that the Romans had on providing medicine and health in Britain during their time here. Now that particular diagram is down here. So how did public health and medicine impact on Roman society? What did the Romans provide in terms of public health? Aqueducts, baths, public toilets, sewers, etc. What beliefs did the Romans have in the supernatural? Were they overwhelmingly superstitious, overwhelmingly scientific, or a mixture between the two? What were some of their natural explanations for the cause of illness? When you complete the mind map, go back to the extension task and colour code for the following themes. Now, each of these themes run through the course. The booklets will teach the course chronologically. The more able students, however, will be able to take each of these themes and plot them as threads through the story of medicine. At the end of the activity, complete the reflection activity. Lesson 2 then, to compare public health provision in the medieval period with that of Roman times. So although separated by 1,000 years, how did the two public health provisions compare? Straightforward true or false activity in the first instance. Then we move on to looking at two different scenes comparing Rome with medieval. If history is all about progress, one would expect the Romans to be basic and the medieval period to be better. As you study the two illustrations, however, you will see that the Romans, because of their strong, centralized government, had much better medical provision than the medieval, weak central government and laissez-faire approach to medicine. Go through each of the statements you make around your colour coding diagram. Identify whether or not you are seeing progress, things getting better, regression, things getting worse, or continuity. And the more able students will be needing to see that. It's going to be pretty straightforward to see why the Romans were better, but are there any examples of continuity between the two periods? For example, you will see in the Roman scene a picture of a temple. When the Romans couldn't use science to explain illness, they relied on superstition. Same too with the medieval period. You'll see not temples in the medieval town, but churches. Complete the reflection. What was medicine like during the Middle Ages in England? Work your way through the PowerPoint. Why did the Roman Empire come to an end? What was Western Europe like in AD 500? So the Roman Empire collapses, it was too big, it was too successful, too many people wanted to invade it and take it over. What happened when the Roman Empire ended? It was the start of the Dark Ages. Wars broke out, strong centralized government fell apart, public health provision disappeared. The consequence for medicine is that the aqueducts, the sewers, the baths fell into disrepair. Using those ideas to complete task 3. What that the Romans provided was lost, 2, 3, and explain down here why this was a bad consequence. What survived the collapse of the Roman Empire was the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Empire became Christian just before the end of the Roman Empire, and it's the Christian Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, headed by the Pope, that survives the fall of the empire. Despite the Dark Ages being a period of chaos, the Church was still powerful. How did the Church help and hinder medicine? Now again, it's going to be very straightforward to provide examples of how the Catholic Church held back medicine. But the more able students will also be able to provide examples of how the Church helped. So for example, Galen may not have been perfect, but the Church preserved his ideas. This provided continuity between medieval and Roman medicine. Then moving on, the various beliefs of medieval people and trying to determine whether or not the belief was scientific or superstitious. So astrology, superstitious. The 4 humours, a natural explanation, even though it may not be correct. Who treated the ordinary people in medieval times? The wise woman. They couldn't afford a doctor. What would the normal people use as medicine? Natural, herbal remedies. Summarise for task 9 the 4 main medical developments. And then finally, from the knowledge that you've learnt, are we looking at evolution, slow change, progression and improvement, rapid change in the form of a revolution, regression, things getting worse, or continuity? Between Rome and medieval, are we seeing one of these, or are we seeing a combination? Lesson 4, why were people still reading Galen? We go back to this notion that Galen was approved of by the Catholic Church. Watch the film on the shared area, complete the closed statements. Once you've worked your way through the task sheet and identified these various factors that contribute to why he was still being read, please rank them in order of importance. Remember, for our GCSE responses, we need to provide an opinion in the conclusion as to which you think is the most important. Having an opinion and expressing it, very important in your written work. Rank them from 1 to 4, please. And the different stages here are what you will have been colour coding for these 4 factors. Some of you may have done this task on a separate worksheet. Now take your opinion and write a PEA paragraph to explain the most important reason why people were still reading Galen in the year 1400. Finally, do your reflection. Lesson 5. Work your way through the questions of the starter activity. You then undertook group work, jigsaw work. You were responsible for finding out one of these particular sections and then changing groups to share your knowledge. Who was responsible for teaching the sick? Monks in monasteries, wise women in the villages, physicians if you were fortunate enough to have money, an apothecary if you could afford to buy some medicine. Medical training was carried out by the church in their newly founded universities. Places like Oxford and Cambridge in England, Padua in Italy were the first medical schools established by the Catholic Church. Learning took place from lectures given directly from books written by Galen over 1,000 years before. It was didactic teaching, sit down, shut up and listen, not practical training, as we will see that evolves during the Renaissance. Hospitals would have been provided for poor in the monasteries. The wealthy would have been treated at home by their physicians. Hospitals, very basic, charitable institutions. And finally, the Black Death. Introduction. Who are we describing here? In class, this is carried out as a collective memory activity, working in groups to retrieve information. What were the various causes of the Black Death? And finally, if we know what the causes are, how were they cured? Now please remember, if people believe that the cause of an illness is superstitious, their cures will be superstitious. As science was struggling during the medieval period, many of these causes will involve strange notions like astrology, conjunctions of the planets and the stars, foreigners, bad air, the wrath of God, vents opening up in the earth and miasma creeping out, None of them are anything to do with the virus carried by the fleas on the rats that were in fact the real cause of the Black Death. But because the causes were believed to be superstitious, the cures are equally strange. Eating ground emeralds, making sure that you didn't allow God to punish you, so you punish yourself instead. Flagellation. Causes and cures of the Black Death.